Hey loves. So, coming to you live from my van. I've made a big life shift, which is I got myself a converted Sprinter van and I have hit the road. And I don't know what that means. It's going to be integrating with my life, but you'll be seeing me a lot from here, from all sorts of different places. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to give you some views of some of the beauty that I find as I'm out here. But what I wanted to just be with you today about is suffering. So I've been on this 2.5 weeks, so it's my maiden voyage in the van, and on the beginning of a year-long form of sabbatical, or just kind of a year of tending to some things. And what I've been with, what I'm reckoning with inside of myself are the ways that I suffer, particularly the ways that I suffer needlessly, the ways that I'm habituated to create suffering inside of myself, the ways that I'm habituated to amplify the suffering that I cannot avoid, or the ways in which I cut off from what I need, what's here for me when I am in suffering, and when I most need it. So, the school, her mystery school starts in about 2.5 weeks for this next year, this next cycle. So partly what I wanted to speak to how I see how I see the deep feminine tradition, specifically how it's held in the school, supports the ending of suffering, or at least the easing of it. And also, as I'm sharing that with you, also, whether or not you're going to do the school, join me for that, just to do it right now, right? To be with a few of these principles. So the um, come with me and let's end this suffering, right? That's the title of this video. And I think, I break that down in my head. Come with me. Well, where to, right? Where are we going? And let's end the suffering. And, I think that there's a reality to just like to say at the beginning that, suffering comes, right? It's part of our transformation. It's part of our loss. It's part of our human. It's part of our life walk. However, in a way, what I would say, and what I think the school holds, and what I'm definitely bringing myself closer to, is that when I say in the school that we were made for this, right? We as women, we were made for this. We were made for this life. We were made to regenerate. We were made to be gardens. We were made to be mercy here, right? I also, and this is what I want to deepen, is we were also made to suffer in grace. That when we say that we were made for this, it doesn't exclude suffering. It doesn't mean, well, we were made for this, but weird, why are we suffering? Because we were made for it. We were made for this, something must be wrong because we're suffering, right? What it means is, to me, what I'm exploring is, no, we were made even for that. It comes a lot for me working with women because there's so much that we've experienced that is so obviously wrong. Many of us have experienced sexual violation, or, well, that's enough, right? And most of us have experienced that. And um, there's a way that the internalized sense of like, well, now I'm broken. Now I can't get back from that. Something's been taken from me. That happens in a lot of different ways, a lot of different kinds of violation, a lot of different kinds of um, a lot of different kinds of ways in which we are impacted by life, by what is clearly not, that's clearly distorted in life. What I've noticed over time and what I uphold is that we were also made for that. We weren't sent here on this journey of life without being given what we need to also face suffering, to also overcome what is not okay, what is not in alignment with life, which is what is not in alignment with the life-giving laws or natural harmonies, what does not uphold us, right? It's important. It's important to me because I'm aware that this exists. All these things exist. They're not going anywhere. And that in order for me to actually, I think really in order for any of us to navigate the reality of life, human life, without closing our eyes to aspects of it. We need to have faith and find the way in which we were made even to suffer. We were made to grieve. We were made to release. We were made to burn up and become something new. I've seen it. I've experienced it in myself. It hurts. And it's not that it ends the suffering, but what I would say is that we're made for it, meaning that it doesn't have to break us. What I see is true for myself, why I created the school, what's true for a lot of women is that, a lot of what happens is there's an interruption in our access to the ways in which our access to the ways in which we access that capacity, the ways in which we remember those capacities or support each other in finding them. So that's what I want to say about it. It's almost like all of this, all the school, this conversation, this is based on my deep belief that there's nothing not redeemable. And that we must have been made for this. The Creator is merciful, right? And we are miraculous. There must be, so we look for it, right? And in a way, that's a lot of what a mystery school is. That's a lot of what we're in. It may not be obvious. We may have to say, I don't know, i.e., I'm in a mystery right now. I don't know how I'm made for this. I don't know what exactly might come forth from me in order to meet this, or from the world to support me as I meet this. But I'm willing to sit in the unknown for a moment or a long moment and be in proximity with the mystery so that life can reveal itself to me in a way that I didn't know about before. You know, there's a humbleness. I think, I mean, there ought to be a humbleness on any spirit path because they're very humbling in reality. I think in a deep feminine path, one of the qualities of the humility is that we have to recognize the ways in which we've been orphaned, the ways in which we don't know anymore, and we do have to remember. You know, we might have a sense of it, we might touch it here and there. It's like the amount of times I have a woman friend or a priestess sister remind me, like, okay, remember, Jumana, where's your throne? You've left it again, right? The amount of times that no matter what I've touched, I have to be reminded to come back. I mean, this is just the way that the walking goes, right? So I think that there's a humility that needs to be held in terms of understanding again what woman is in her fullness, what we are in our fullness. And you know, that's what the school holds a lot of, is like, okay, we're going to hold each other in this. We're going to keep reminding each other. We're going to be reflections, and we're going to be in this rhythm of 9 months of weekly infusions. So, you know, you can go out so far, but then you're going to come back. There's a safety in that, right? And that's what sacred friendship is, right? That's what any spiritual practice is, really. So the three things that I was thinking about, you know, the three aspects that I think the school holds, and that I would call like kind of deep feminine, some deep feminine approaches or medicine for suffering. One is that when we're suffering, we don't go anywhere. Like, it's like, I like that, come with me and let's end this suffering. That doesn't mean, you know, for instance, in the school, am I going to take you somewhere? No. We together are going to go down and in, right? And what that is, I mean, there's so many layers to it. It's a principle we work with throughout the school. But what that is this understanding that when we leave ourselves, when suffering comes or it emerges, right? When we leave ourselves and we start to imagine that the answer to this suffering must be somewhere else. It must be, I should go here, I should do this, I should end this relationship, I should, you know, be in this relationship, you know, all these things, that there's a movement there, and the movement is out, up and out. The movement towards potentizing, towards coming home, and towards starting to ease that suffering and get resourced inside of it is down and in. It has to do with calling yourself home, consolidating your energy, potentizing here, and dropping under everything that's happening. So you're not attempting to get out, over, above, away, right? This is hard. You know, it can be really hard. And there's a way of dropping down, and maybe you can do it now, or maybe it's just, this is a suggestion for you when you notice you're suffering. See if just that suggestion of like, hey, are you out? Are you scattering? Are you dispersed? Are you grasping? Okay, okay, it's fine. But can you turn that movement to be one that is dropping you down under? I think the important thing that, you know, it's a lot of what the posture, the poise is that's cultivated in the school, is that that isn't the ultimate answer. You know, usually, often there is movement, there is action, there is choice to be made, there is a voice to be spoken, right? But we do this first, always, to ease the suffering that we're in. We get resourced in order to meet it. And we do that by dropping down and under. This is about deep feminine, immanent, resourced, potent presence that is anchored in something more than us, right? So I think just with a suggestion of that, you could play with it. We cultivate it for 9 months in the school, or many years, for those of you who've been in it for many years. But that's one thing I would say, is that when suffering comes, the sometimes counterintuitive movement, the often counterintuitive movement, is to go under it. See what you can find there, even if it's just a little bit of resource, even if it's just a moment of respite. Then you make your decision, right? You come from that in response to whatever is in front of you. Or you take long respite there. Just go under it. Recognize that there is an ocean of you. There's an ocean of presence underneath of all that moves in our lives, even in its most extreme. But where it's found is by sinking down under the surface. So the second piece I had then was, you know, how we very much work with suffering in her mystery school is we give it place. You know, I think that there are a lot of, you know, there are different ways of approach, right? Attempting to transcend it, attempting to live a life that has no suffering, whatever. You know, and of course, actually, that is a big part of what I would wish for all of us, is that we decompress and that we can feel the blessing it is of life, right? But what we do in the school is we give suffering its place. There's an entire month devoted to the descent, which are the annihilations of life. You know, those things that are going to annihilate you at some point or another. And there's a particular journey to that, right? That is an initiatory journey. And when we give it place like that, when we give it sacred context, and we say, we understand, we know deeply that this isn't here just to take us down. This isn't here just to reaffirm that life is hopeless or a struggle, or that humanity is sick, or you know, whatever this is that's in front of us, that it's not just there for that, that there is always initiatory power in suffering. When we are connected to that initiatory power, we give it place, we give it context, and we can actually ride the current of resurrection that's inside of it, because it will be an annihilation followed by resurrection if we give it place and we give it nourishment and context, and we work with the laws of annihilation. Meaning, you don't, when an annihilating wave is coming, you don't stand tall and brace up against it. You have to surrender and let it go. You have to, even though it seems like it's going to kill you, which on some level it does. So I think that's part of it. You know, there's something, to me, there's something very important, and I notice that with a lot of women in the school, is that just us giving it a place. Oh yeah, annihilation, it'll come. It's a part of your life. It's a part of initiation, and the whole purpose of it is that it is not what you wanted. We give it place. We honor the sacred context of that, and all of a sudden, a whole world opens up in terms of how to walk with that then, right? And make medicine of that then, and become more of what we are on the other side of that annihilation, not less. That is the generative promise of the cycles in the deep feminine way. one of the other aspects of giving suffering place is to also give pleasure its place. One of the things that, for me, that is really important actually is, I'll notice that my suffering, I'll give it an amplitude. It's very hard. I mean, there are neurological reasons. There are all sorts of reasons why we fixate on the worst case scenario. We fixate on what's wrong, right? I mean, it's a thing. It's a wiring thing even. However, we work very much in the school around finding the capacity to hold both, of all things, right? Widening our capacity to hold it all, because we are the containers, we are the vessels, we are this, right? So we really work with, can you hold the roses of paradise in one hand, meaning can you be aware of the pleasure, the fragrance, the beauty at the same time that you're holding the night blooming jasmine of the underworld in the other, which are these kind of secret blossoms that only open in the night, only open in the dark, and we learn to do that, right? We learn to amplify in an authentic way, in an embodied and like tangible way, bringing pleasure forward, but pleasure meaning like your grace, your rapture, your communion with life, what life is giving you, even as you might be suffering, that we learn how to not cut off from that, because it is there to support us and get us through whatever. These are the resources. These flowers blooming right behind your head, where you're sitting on the sidewalk crying about your relationship. They're there for a reason. Their fragrance is there for a reason, and we take that in. So what we're learning to do a lot, and what I would encourage you to do in suffering, is don't denigrate the power of comfort, pleasure, grace, that which delights you, because those nourish you. They don't make everything go away, right? It doesn't all of a sudden fix everything. When we're suffering, we fixate on fixing it, and that usually continues the suffering. But when we are able to basically say, all right, I'm suffering. Can I feel that? Can I let that be and not leave it, not leave myself? We don't want to leave ourselves. You want all of you. So you want that raw, you want that what we are when we're suffering and when we're burning, right? And can we widen? The movement is a widening, so that there is a little space around the edges of our suffering, right? There's a little decompression. There's a little bit of a fragrance moving through it, and we're not completely lifting off from our root in the good, our root in life, our root in grace, because suffering is hard, right? So that's another piece I would say, is that there's a way, again, the invitation. So that one invitation is, with suffering, to end it potentially, at least end what you're extra creating on, ways in which you're amplifying it. The movement is down and under, resourcing down and under, coming home, settling back. Then the movement also then is widen. We dilate when we birth a baby. That's what we do. This one of our magics, right? So one of the things we're made to do is to dilate as a being, right? So we want to remember dilation. Oh yeah, that's an option here. I'm suffering. There's a lot of options. I could contract, I could explode, I could collapse. There's another option. It's dilation. I could dilate around this. I could become just a little bigger. I could decompress around this. And I'll just drop it there. The final piece I would say, as I'm thinking about suffering, as I'm kind of working through my own kind of suffering habits, and just really considering, because I'm about to go through the school myself more intensively than I ever have. So I go through it every single year as I'm focalizing it. This year, I'm taking a sabbatical from everything but the school, and I'm going through it very specifically to reabsorb what's come through me, and then also to walk myself through a very specific transformation, which to me looks like a fundamental transformation around the way that I, um, just some fundamental transformations, we'll say, right? The way that I hold myself, my habit fields, my deeper habit fields. I would say like a third piece um, that I think is, this is very much reflective of alliance with deep feminine potency. It's to befriend the dark. Again, we have a whole month in our mystery school, Dark Mother, where we're working, we befriend the dark, we befriend the mystery. We understand, we start to come into right relationship with the dark, with the unknown, with that which we cannot control, see, know, understand necessarily. And we come to befriend it, understand that there's alliance there, that actually there is a presence in the darkness that is restorative, that is cleansing actually. When all the lights go out, you find yourself in a time where you're just too full of too much, and so much going on, and it's almost like there are too many lights on. I mean, I think that happens a lot for a lot of us, overstimulated. What the cleansing is for that is darkness. Turn off all the lights. Invite darkness in, right? And there are ways in which we've been culturally habituated to fear the darkness or to vilify the darkness. And what it is it's actually a profound place of deep feminine power, deep feminine regeneration, insulation, incubation, and rebirth. Very much, and it's also very much the yin field, right? From a Taoist perspective, this is the place from which all life emerges. And the more that we are able to rest into darkness, rest into literally not knowing, like dark, the blinder, we don't know. It's not blinders like, I can't see and everything's happening and I still can't see. It's more like absorbing the nourishment of darkness, letting it calm, soothe, insulate, right? Wrap you, and then finding new life in that, right? So there's a process, we work with it a lot in her mystery school, of befriending darkness and understanding and working with the cycle of of the reality that when you enter the unknown yields the known, something new for you. That is where life comes from, and that we surrender ourselves. We surrender our thoughts. I mean, where does so much suffering come from? It comes from how much we're fixating on whatever is causing us suffering, and how much we are over managing it, making it worse than what it is. I mean, let's be honest. How often I do it all the time. How often do you do it? It's like your own ways of being with the things make it worse, right? We're looking towards how can we stay supple here? How can we not fixate? How can we not collapse? How can we not harden in the face of these tides that are coming fast and heavy now in life? They're just going to keep coming unless we learn, or we must, there's a little bit of a no choice about it kind of situation happening as things intensify in the world. If we don't learn how to yield, if we don't learn how to really rest in the unknown and draw succor and strength and clarity from the unknown rather than confusion, we are going to suffer, right? There is a way in which we really have no choice but to befriend the fact that the unknown. We don't know. That statement, I don't know. So those are my offerings to you today. Did I tell you it's my birthday? Maybe I did. I don't know. It's my birthday today. So I'm considering how I'm moving into my next year, this next cycle around the sun. I'm considering very much, what am I doing with the school? In what ways is it supporting the ease of suffering, the end of suffering on a micro and bigger level, right? And these are some of my thoughts about that. So if you notice that you're suffering, which will happen, consider coming home, dropping down underneath of it, looking for, in your being, looking for your depths, looking for rest, grounding, but anchor, I would say. Consider widening. Consider just remembering that we are kind of, as a survival being, we're wired to often focus on whatever is potentially threatening. It requires discipline to widen into pleasure, into gratitude, into what creation is also providing that is of beauty or of care, right? And then finally, to really consider befriending the darkness. Like, just start to love literal darkness. Use it, draw it in. Just close your eyes and literally eat darkness, right? Just let it come in and feel it start to just soothe, quiet, cleanse you of excess. And take shelter there. Those are some thoughts for you. And I wish you joy, actually, as we're saying this, all these things. And I wish, I wish you so many good things. And yes, of course, you can actually come with me on a journey. A 9-month journey starts September 6th. We begin again with Her Mystery School. HerMysterySchool.com. You can see all about it. If you resonate with this lineage that I'm in and that I'm holding, and these videos and all of this, I think please do check it out. See how you feel. Really see if it's your time, if it's a calling for you, and if your heart is drawn, right? Because I would love to have you, and we'll be open, and then we close until next year. So it's the moment. It's the window in the year where it's time, if it's time for you. All right, let's be. Next time I'll try to get you. I'll figure out how to get you some views of some of the beauty where I am. I'd like to share that with you. Okay, blessed be.